Let's build something. Hey guys, what I wanted to talk about today is the type of tools that I use around the shed. This isn't in any particular order. I was just going to go through them and just talk about the different types of tools I use and why I use them. So to kick it off, the main tool I use is a chisel. Main reason is it can do most of what I need, along with a hammer, depending on the type of job that I need to do. I need to dig in a little bit more, but basically, in a way, it's just a very fast, high grit sander in a way. So rather than something like this, using that to round off corners, using this chisel, mainly because it's a lot quicker. You have a lot more control. And for example, something like this that I'm doing. I'm currently working on this wooden dagger here. Now, for this edge that I've made, I'm not sure if you can see it. You might be able to see there, thinner there, and thicker in the centre. Now, I've mainly used a chisel for this because it was a fairly thick bit of wood. You can see that it's a lot more different, and the chisel just glides through it and takes off so much more material than a sander does. Now, when I started this, I wasn't very good with the chisel, and I've come back to it now that I'm a lot better than when I started. So I have messed it up a little bit. It's pretty crap. The blade. Sorry, police cars in the background. But yeah, one thing I like about one thing I like about the chisel in general is that it gives you a lot of control over what you're doing, and you can choose if you want to make deep cuts, really thin shavings. You can do lots of different movements that give you different effects. Now, if you want to just take off a lot of material, you put your body into it. If you want to take off small shavings, you just use a little slicing motion. At least that's how I use it. Now, another thing that I use to shape a lot of the time is this knife here. I got this in France, I think last year, and I think it's a skinning knife actually. I'm not sure. It's got a lovely horn handle, but what I like about using this when it comes to shaping is that it leaves you a really nice, clean edge. What I like about it is that it shows you the shape of it really well, because a lot of the time when I'm using the chisel I get a really, I'm not quite sure how to explain it, very splintered looking edge, and so I can't really tell the angle of the blade. I can't really tell what the kind of overall shape is, and what this is really good at doing is just making flat cuts and single continuous slices. I used this quite a lot when I was making the hand groove in the shield. You might remember that, and it just shows really. I really like it. It just shows you really clearly the cut that you're making. One of the final things that I use for shaping, you've just seen it, is a sander. I've talked about this. I think it's MDF, something like that. Just old recycled cardboard. I'm sure you can pick them up at B&Q. You can get plastic ones as well, if that's more your thought. And I often use high grit. I don't often use low grit sandpapers. I haven't had anything that needs that type of care or intricacy. This just seems to do it for me. Nice and quick, especially with this grip, and it just makes it feel a lot nicer. You should all know what sanding is, obviously, if you're watching this channel. But I don't use it as much for shaping. I used to use it for shaping a lot more of the time when I was younger, but just because it was a lot easier. But it's not quick at all. But it can give you a lot of control if you're much better than it with me. But mainly just for finishing, getting a smooth edge, and that's that. Now, these hammers, I've got a third one actually, just here. 3 types of hammers here. they all have slightly different heads. You can tell this one has got the, well, I think the biggest, fattest edge, a little bit bigger than this one. But it's also got this dome. I'm not sure what the dome's used for. I can't remember using it last. But that's for getting really heavy cuts, or if I'm using a nail, something like that. Hammer's self-explanatory. That for taking out nails, for wrenching them out. This is the one that I use mostly along with this chisel, because it's just, you can get light taps, it's very quick, nimble in the hand, and you can just do that. If you want to get focus, you can use that. I mainly just use the flat end. And so those are the hammers. Now, we've got two types of saws that I mainly use for woodwork, at least, and it's these two here. Well, this one I mainly use if I'm taking off great big bits of wood. Let's say I've got this oak here. If I want to take off and that whole bit there, I'd use this. Sharp, it glides through the wood. Only thing is, it's not very accurate, and that's why I've got this tenon saw here. The tenon saw is brilliant. It's got these tiny little teeth on it, and because it's one flat and thick bit of steel on the top here, it means that you get a very straight and very accurate cut. And this is if I'm using something, let's say, just for an example, if I needed a really square cut going up here, if I wanted to bring that up and make that really square, oh, just got a splinter, I'd use a tenon saw, because it once it starts cutting, it's kind of wedges itself in that area, so it gives you really nice straight cuts. Now, you've all seen the Black & Decker workbench that I use, and that pretty much that's all I really need most of the time, along with these types of wood, these plastic blocks. You can get smaller ones as well. What these do is, if something can't fit in the workbench, you place these. The Black & Decker workbench has got holes in it which these slot into, but you basically put stuff on the workbench like that, and then they fit around it. Now, if the workbench isn't working, or if I need something to go over it, or if I'm using a jigsaw to cut into something and I don't want it to cut into the workbench, use a G-clamp. Now, this is really good just because of the shape of it. It can go around the workbench, clamps into... I use this to make the handle for the shield that you should be seeing soon. And it's just if the workbench doesn't work, the blocks don't work, and I need to clamp something down, that's what I use. Other than that, I don't have a huge arsenal. You all know what a drill is. That's the only other thing I use other than a jigsaw. Obviously, we've got a couple other tools. A hacksaw, that's if I'm working with metal, obviously. And other than that, there isn't much to say other than rulers, pencils, but, you know, self-explanatory. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate everyone. Love you all. Have a nice day.